Grab a newspaper, a spreadsheet, a list of river lengths, whatever, and just look at the first digit of every number. Not the whole number, just the leading digit, the very first one you read. You'd bet that digit is a 1 about as often as it's a 9, right? There are 9 choices, so each should show up about 11% of the time. That's the sensible guess. It's also wrong. In a shocking amount of real-world data, the leading digit is a 1 almost a third of the time, 30%, and 9 barely limps in under 5%, so 1's outnumber 9's by like 6 to 1. For no reason you can see just staring at the numbers. Keep your eye on this, because once you know it's there, you cannot unsee it. And it turns out you can use this lopsided little fact to catch people lying about money. I got genuinely obsessed with this for a week. Let me show you the thing. Let's be fair to the sensible guess first, because it's not stupid. If I roll a die, every face is equally likely. If I pick a random lottery number, every digit is equally likely. So your brain files leading digits in the same drawer, 9 options, flat and fair, 11% each. And for some data, that's actually true. Lottery numbers, dice, phone number, last digits, those really are flat. So the puzzle isn't that flatness is impossible. It's that a huge chunk of natural data refuses to be flat. Populations of countries, lengths of rivers, the numbers on your electric bill, street addresses, physical constants in a textbook, the dollar amounts in a company's accounts. All of them lean hard on the small digits. Here's the honest version of my week. My first instinct was that the data was cherry-picked. Somebody found the one data set that does this and made a big deal of it. That's not what's happening. It's almost everywhere. And that's the part that should bug you. So the real question isn't why is it lopsided? It's why is this specific lopsided pattern so weirdly universal? Okay, the actual numbers, because they're clean and kind of beautiful. Leading digit 1, 30.1%, 2, 17.6, 3, 12.5, 4, about 9.7, and it keeps sliding down, 5, 6, 7, 8, until 9 at 4.6%. Watch the shape. It's not a straight line down, it's a curve, a smooth decay, each bar a bit shorter than the last, but the gap shrinks as you go. This exact set of numbers has a name, Benford's law, and it comes from a formula I'll show you in a second that is honestly way simpler than the pattern deserves. But before the formula, just sit with the shape. 1 is more likely than 2, which is more likely than 3, all the way down. There's a strict pecking order among digits, and the small ones win every time. The notation for this is going to look a little ugly when it shows up, and I apologize in advance on behalf of mathematicians. But the picture is gorgeous, so hold on to the picture. Here's the formula, and don't flinch. The probability that the leading digit is d equals the log, base 10, of 1 plus 1 over d. That's it. Plug in d equals 1, log of 1 plus 1, log of 2, which is about 0.301. There's your 30%. Plug in 9. Log of 1 plus 1 ninth, log of 10 ninths, tiny, about 0.046. There's your 4.6. The whole staircase falls out of that one line. Now why logarithms? Logs are what you reach for when you care about ratios instead of amounts. When going from 1 to 2 feels like the same kind of jump as going from 2 to 4. That word, ratios, is the whole secret, and we're going to spend the rest of our time earning it, because a formula you can plug numbers into is not the same as understanding why the universe agreed to follow it. I could memorize this in a minute. It took me way longer to actually feel why it's true, and that's the good part. Let me give you the picture that finally made it click for me. Draw a number line, but a logarithmic one, where instead of equal steps of 1, 2, 3, you have equal steps of 1, 10, 100, 1,000. Powers of 10 evenly spaced. Now on this ruler, where do the numbers that start with 1 live? Everything from 1 to 2 starts with a 1, from 10 to 20, from 100 to 200. Watch how much room that takes up on the log ruler. It's a fat chunk. Now the numbers starting with 9, from 9 to 10, 90 to 100, those are squished into a tiny sliver right before each power of 10. Same digit, way less real estate. And the amount of space a digit gets on this log ruler is exactly its Benford probability. 1 gets 30% of the ruler, 9 gets 4.6. The lopsidedness isn't a mystery anymore. It's just how much room each digit occupies once you measure the world in ratios instead of amounts. Here's a test that convinced me this is real, and not a coincidence. Take any Benford following data set, say stock prices in dollars, and convert every value to a different currency. Multiply everything by, whatever, 7.3. The numbers all change, but if you recount the leading digits, you get the exact same Benford distribution back. One still shows up 30% of the time. That's wild, right? The pattern doesn't care what units you measure in. Dollars, euros, yen. The leading digit shape is identical, and that's actually a huge clue. Any law about leading digits that survives changing units has to be scale invariant, and it turns out Benford's law is the only distribution that's perfectly scale invariant. It's forced. If a leading digit pattern exists at all and doesn't secretly depend on whether you measure in feet or meters, it has to be this one. That's the moment it stopped feeling like a spooky observation and started feeling like a theorem. Nature isn't choosing Benford. Benford is the only option that doesn't play favorites with units. So which data actually obeys and which doesn't? The trick is that Benford loves data that spans a lot of orders of magnitude. If your numbers wander across several powers of 10, from tens to thousands to millions, they get spread over many turns of that log ruler, and the leading digits settle into Benford. Populations do this, towns of hundreds, and cities of millions all in one list. Anything that grows by percentages does it too, because steady percentage growth is just walking evenly along the log ruler, but data that's bunched up won't obey. Adult human heights in centimeters are basically all between 150 and 190. That barely covers one order of magnitude, so leading digit 1 dominates in a boring, non-Benford way. Same with things that have a hard floor and ceiling, or numbers people round off, or IDs that are assigned in order. So it's not magic, and it's not universal. It's specifically the sprawling, multiplicative, many orders of magnitude data that snaps to the pattern, which, conveniently, describes almost everything about money. Let me hammer the growth idea because it's the cleanest why. Imagine an investment that grows 10% a year, starting at $100. To go from 100 to 200, to get off the leading digit 1, it has to gain a full 100%. At 10% a year, that takes about 7 years. 7 years stuck with a leading one. But once you're up at 900, going from 900 to 1,000, that's only an 11% gain, a bit over 1 year, and you're past the 9. So the money spends years wearing a 1 and only months wearing a 9. If I photograph the balance at a random moment, I'm overwhelmingly likely to catch it on a small leading digit just because it lingers there longer. That's Benford, dressed up as patience. Anything that grows multiplicatively, money, populations, bacteria, file sizes, spends most of its life on the low digits because climbing off a low digit is proportionally the hardest climb. Now the payoff, the reason accountants actually care about a 100-year-old fact about digits. When people make up numbers, they're bad at it, really bad, in a specific, predictable way. Ask someone to invent a realistic-looking expense report, a pile of fake dollar amounts that won't raise flags, and they spread the leading digits out too evenly. They sprinkle in plenty of 5s and 6s and 7s and 8s because those feel random and natural to a human. Nobody sits there thinking, I should make 30% of these start with a 1, so faked data comes out flatter than Benford predicts. Too few ones, too many middle digits, and real financial data, remember, spans orders of magnitude and grows multiplicatively, so it should be beautifully Benford, which means you can lay the real distribution next to the reported one, and if the reported numbers are flat where they should be curved, something's off. You haven't proven fraud, but you found exactly where to point the auditor. The lie leaves a fingerprint in the first digit. Here's how it plays out in a real audit, roughly. You take every transaction in a company's books, thousands of them, and you just tally the leading digit of each dollar amount. You plot those tallies as bars. Then you draw the Benford curve on top as the expectation. If the company's honest, the bars hug the curve, wobbling a little because real data is noisy, but tracking it. Now suppose someone's been inventing invoices around, say, $70,000 and $80,000 to skim money, or padding a bunch of claims that start with a 2 to stay under an approval limit. Those invented numbers pile up on digits they shouldn't. The bar for that digit pokes way above the curve, a spike where Benford says there should be a gentle slope. Auditors have a statistical test for how far the bars can stray before it's suspicious, but honestly, your eyeball catches the big ones. The spike is the tell. It doesn't name the culprit, it just says, dig here. And that's often enough to unravel the whole thing. This isn't just a cute theory. Benford tests are admissible evidence in U.S. courts. They've been used on tax returns, on campaign finance filings, on corporate accounting scandals, where the reported numbers were smooth in exactly the wrong way. Investigators have pointed it at economic data that countries report about themselves, and some of it does not pass. But I have to be honest about the limits, because overselling this is how you embarrass yourself. Passing the Benford test does not mean you're clean. A smart fraudster who knows the law can shape their fake numbers to fit the curve, and failing it doesn't prove guilt. Some perfectly honest data sets just don't span enough orders of magnitude to be Benford in the first place, and you'll flag them by accident if you're careless. So it's not a lie detector, it's a smoke detector. It doesn't tell you there's a fire, and it doesn't tell you who lit it. It tells you which room to walk into first. So here's where I land, and here's the thread that still bugs me. Benford's law is really a statement that our number system is arbitrary. The digits 1 through 9 feel like 9 equal citizens, but the moment you look at how real, growing, sprawling quantities fill up the space between the powers of 10, that equality evaporates. One is just physically bigger on the ruler that nature actually uses. And the thing I can't fully shake, this works in base 10 because we have 10 fingers, but there's a version of Benford in every base. Base 2, base 60, whatever aliens count in. The specific numbers change, the lopsidedness doesn't, which makes me think the law isn't really about digits at all. It's about ratios wearing a digit costume. The digit was always a distraction. Anyway, go check a data set yourself. Grab anything that spans a few orders of magnitude, tally the first digits, and watch a river or a stock market quietly confess to a pattern nobody told it to follow. That part still gets me.